What if I fail something in Army basic training? So easy answer, not necessarily the end of the world. So what's going to happen is you're probably going to get more than one chance to pass something that you need to pass in Army basic training. There are things like the Army combat fitness test, the fitness test you have to do in basic training. You have a weapons qualification. You have other things that are kind of evaluating you on, and you got to pass them to be able to move on to AIT, to move off to your first unit, to actually be in the United States Army. And you might have some worries as far as, well, what if I fail one of those events or multiple of those events? One of the common ones that people sometimes do fail is maybe the Army combat fitness test. That fitness test, maybe they're not in great shape, maybe they're not in as good of shape as they thought they were in, and that initial one is really tough, and they end up failing even one of those events, because even if you fail one of those events in the Army combat fitness test, you fail the entire thing. So essentially what's going to happen is you're going to have probably another chance to be able to retake that test, because especially like with the Army combat fitness test, you're going to take one at the very beginning, and that one is the higher percentage of where people might possibly fail that one, because they may not come into basic training in as good of shape as they needed to be, type of thing. But then through the course of being doing that training and being in basic training, you get into better shape, and then hopefully the next time it comes around, because then you do another one later on, hopefully you pass that one. Even if you pass that first one, there's usually like a final one that's like the real one that counts, because that first one is mainly just to see where you're at. That way you can see where you need to improve and what you need to get better at. And then there's one at the end that you have to pass to be able to graduate, type of thing. And that's the main one that they're kind of looking at anyways in the first place. But even in the event that maybe you don't pass that last one, then you might still have another opportunity to retake it, because that's what they're trying to do. They're not trying to necessarily, especially with the recruiting crisis, right? They're trying to get people into the Army, right? So they don't want to necessarily just kick everybody out because they failed the fitness test once or they failed weapons qualification once. They're going to give you multiple chances. They're going to try to, train you better, try to do what's called like remedial training to help you improve in whatever it was that you were not successful in. That way, hopefully the next time around, you are successful and you do pass it. You might even get multiple chances to pass it, maybe 3, 4, 5. It really depends on the leadership. There's no real set standard as far as how many opportunities they're going to give you. It's really just going to depend on the effort you're putting into it, the reason why you're failing in it, and the leadership, what their discretion is going to be. But in the end, if you get to a point where you just simply can't pass whatever it is, it's the fitness test, it's weapons qualification, it's something else, and they've given you multiple chances to try to pass it and you can't pass it, then they might look into options to possibly separate you and put you out of the Army. Now, it's not the same as like getting kicked out of the Army. I mean, yes, you're essentially getting kicked out of basic training, but it's not the same as getting kicked out of the Army. You're not going to get a dishonorable discharge unless you really mess something up. But if it's something like you failed something, then most likely is what they're going to do is what's typically like a failure to adapt, a general discharge, something real basic where essentially kind of is looked at as if you never really served in the Army. Sure, it's going to show on some records somewheres where you did join the Army, you went off to basic training, but you didn't complete that initial training. But it's not to the extent that you're going to be able to qualify for, veteran benefits. You're not going to qualify for VA loans. You're not going to qualify for education benefits, as a veteran status, none of that kind of stuff, because technically you were not really in the Army. You didn't complete the initial training, but it will still show up on some records somewheres that you were, attempting to. Is that going to necessarily hurt you to get a job? Maybe not, most likely not. I mean, maybe it could have some effect on if you're trying to get some kind of federal job, maybe, but I mean, just because you couldn't pass basic training because you failed a fitness test or weapons qualification, something like that, probably isn't going to look that frowned upon on a lot of employers, type of thing. Some employers are never even going to see that, right? If you're trying to apply for some company, some civilian company, they're probably not even going to know. They're not even going to probably see that. So it's not like you got to get a felony, it's not like you're going to, ruin your life because you didn't pass anything. Of course you want to pass, hopefully, hopefully you going into that mindset of, I want to join the Army and I want to pass. Hopefully you're not one of those individuals that are, maybe changing their minds. They're purposely failing stuff, because, that's not good, right? You want to, if you're going to commit to something, commit, right? Go all the way through it and then finish it out. If it turns out the Army's not something for you, then finish out your contract and get the hell out and move on to something else. But, you don't want to be someone that's, purposely trying to fail. Sometimes all that results in is you just getting recycled and recycled and recycled. And that's basically like you going from one class, basic training class, and you failed that. So then they're going to put you in the next one that's coming up and you're going to go through there and try to pass that one. If you don't pass that one, then maybe they recycle you again. How many times they recycle you really depends on the leadership, right? You could sit there and spend like almost an entire year in basic training just getting recycled and recycled before they eventually kick you out. It really just depends on leadership and how far they want to take things. Maybe if they see that you're doing this on purpose, then sure, they're going to kick you out type of thing. But again, it's just a general discharge because there is a certain time frame you have to be in the Army to actually be able to qualify for veteran benefits, to be able to get like VA loans and everything else like that. So if you don't serve that specific amount of time, then you don't qualify for any benefits and they don't treat you as a veteran, all that kind of stuff like that, because you failed to actually complete the process to actually get into the Army or to get into the military. Of course, you want to put the effort in to try to pass the first time. But if you don't pass the first time, definitely put in a lot of effort to pass the second time if that ends up being your situation, because who knows how many more chances after that second time you're going to get. Maybe they don't give you any. Maybe they get to a point where they're really strict in the United States Army and they're like, nope, second chance is all you get. And if you didn't pass it on the second chance, we're getting rid of you. Maybe not anytime soon that's going to be like that, but nonetheless, the leadership could make that decision to do that. So you always want to put forth a lot of effort and, try to pass it the first time. I was in that situation where I was not in that great of shape when I went off to basic training. And so that very first initial fitness test, I failed the push-ups. I didn't meet the amount of push-ups you were supposed to meet, so I failed the push-up portion of it. But through the course of basic training, I got into a lot better shape. So the time when it came around for the actual main one that actually really counts, that you needed for graduation, I passed that one. So that's a fairly common thing. But of course, you want to put it forth maximum effort. Do not have to worry about anything. Have less stress than you may already have in basic training. So do your best. But basic training, it can have some challenges. It can have a lot of different things about it, a lot of things that people stress about. I have a playlist right here if you want to check out this playlist that tells you all about some different things in basic training, different videos I've done about basic training. So maybe check out that playlist. Links in the description box down below for social media. Follow me, especially on Instagram. Hit that thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribed. I'm Christopher Chaos. I'll see you next time. See ya.